Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be talking about creating community for persons who are neurodivergent. And we're joined by Marianne Borge from Clubhouse, Gibraltar, and Nicole Buckley from Possibilities. Galadriel McGrail, volunteer, founder, and director of the Mindspace Project, who was invited to attend but was unable to join us at the last minute, has sent through a statement, which I will also read shortly. Thank you both for joining us and taking the time to talk about creating community. Clubhouse, Gibraltar, Marianne, and Possibilities, Nicole, are two very well-established organizations, but how did they all begin, and more importantly, why?
Okay, so Clubhouse, Gibraltar began quite a few years ago now, so we're looking at 2013 when it first started, but prior to that, the founding director, who's now retired, Emily, for many, many years, she was advocating for better mental health services in Gibraltar. She came across the Clubhouse model, which is a global model, which started in the 1940s, actually in New York. And when she discovered it, she thought, oh, this is really brilliant. It has education program, employment program, social and well-being program, a housing program, and identified that Gibraltar needed a clubhouse here. So she did present the model to the government, and the government were supportive, and off she went with our current CEO, Tanya, for training, and we opened the doors in 2013. So we are an accredited clubhouse, and we follow the Clubhouse International Standards, which is recovery through work. Mm-hmm. So a member, a person with any type of mental ill health, can join us and recover and live well, full potential lives.
Great, thank you. Nicole, how did it all begin?
Good morning. So Possibilities was actually incorporated and founded in 2021. But the inception of Possibilities was created and built on a platform of a stronger foundation. So my son is autistic, and he was diagnosed in 2013. And shortly after, I found in the community that there wasn't really that much accessibility in terms of access to services. Now, I would ask particular activities, can he integrate into this? Yes, but, and there was always a but. So very quickly, I joined forces with other mothers and parents that were at the school at the time, and they were willing to very much support through the charity Little Smiles as well, and said, how can we incorporate this? How can we do this? And it just very, very quickly took traction. That was over now 10 years ago. So we quickly found that the community was in such great need of access to the community, access to services, just to be seen, to form part of, and that's, I think, where we talk about the really poignant part of integration into the community. The traction was very large, as I said, and in 2021, we had just finished our first camp on the last side of COVID, whereby we saw that there was a great need for the children of St. Martin's to have access to continued services, whilst the new school was being finalised, and pretty much it took off from there. So from what started as an art class has now grown into a plethora of services. We are very blessed for the premises we've got, and it's needless to say that thanks to the community, obviously the government as well, for supporting so generously everybody. We support people of all ages, so we support families who are aware that they have a child or will be having a child with a disability straight throughout life.
Okay, and I'm just going to need my glasses to read Galadriel's statement about a Mindspace project. She says, through the years at Mindspace, we have witnessed something extraordinary happen whenever a person is given permission to simply be. When the mask drops and the shoulders relax. When a young person hears that there is nothing wrong with them. Across our programs or our groups, in our talks or at cafeteria, or even quiet one-to-one conversations, we have met young people and families carrying invisible weights, the kinds of struggles the world often overlooks, because they don't fit neatly into boxes or diagnoses or the limited definitions society still clings to. Many of the young people we meet come to us believing something is wrong with them, not because of who they are, but because they've grown up in environments that didn't understand their way of thinking, learning, or feeling. We have seen teenagers convinced that their brains are faulty instead of beautifully wired. We have sat with parents who have spent years apologizing for their child's disability when the systems around them should have been apologizing to them. At Mindspace, we challenge that narrative. Our tagline has always been a different kind of approach, and it reflects exactly what we do and how we do it. We teach young people how to understand their own mind, how to build resilience, and communicate their needs. And we empower parents with insight, not judgment. That's prevention to us, giving young people the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence to navigate their world without feeling broken. Human beings aren't meant to function in one uniform way. Brains vary, experiences vary, communication varies, and all of it is human. When society overlooks those variations, mental health suffers, and we honor them, and when we honor them, young people thrive. We empower youth with acceptance, with understanding, with resilience, and with skills that stay with them for life. That is the heart of our prevention work, and one of the many reasons why Mindspace exists. We will continue to hold safe spaces for every kind of brain, every kind of learner, every kind of communicator, and every kind of child who has ever felt misunderstood. Embracing the many ways of being human is necessary, compassionate, healing, and above all, it is deeply, profoundly, beautifully human. Galadriel McGrail. So Marianne and Nicole, we're talking about community today, we're talking about representation, we're talking about advocacy for the individuals that you support. So I wonder, how much does some of the points that Galadriel has made in that statement, how far does that resonate with you, and how important are community representation and advocacy?
Well, it does resonate massively. In Clubhouse, we work with individuals 18 years of age plus. So you can imagine a time where we didn't know what neurodiversity, the word didn't even exist, let alone any kind of support. We do have a lot of adults who now have an understanding of why they were locked up, maybe for 30 years, because they weren't, in inverted commas, behaving like normal children. So that 80%, we're looking at about 80% of adults who are neurodivergent do struggle with a mental health or have a mental health condition. This means that in Clubhouse, we are flexible with our approach. We understand that people who are neurodivergent have the rights are the same as people who are not. They are able, and we have noticed within the Clubhouse community that people come to us because it is a safe space, whereas they didn't have that before. And we're looking at not just young people, we're looking at people up to the age of 70, 80 years old, that they're free to be who they are in a place free of judgment, which is something that they've experienced since they were little.
So judgment can be a very heavy burden, Nicole. How do you manage to create community within Possibilities? It has grown significantly since its early days. I was able to visit one day, and really it's quite remarkable, the many facilities, resources, the different kinds of activities you have there.
Thank you.
So how easy has it been or not to build community for your particular demographic?
I mean, I think there's a lot of questions to break down, and I'll try and compartmentalize into one answer. But I think the safe thing to say here is community representation. Why is it so important? And it's primarily because as human beings, we are creatures of habit, and if we can't see it and it's not tangible, it's quite hard for us to understand that it's there. And I think that's just basic human nature. So, whereby we find that the community are warming, more understanding, more forthcoming, or have been rather, to disabilities that present physically. Oftentimes, disabilities or a neurodivergence that is your invisible, that does not have a particular physical presentation, is perhaps harder to be understood, harder to be empathized with. And I think that is why at Possibilities, that's what we advocate for. You know, we advocate that there is support throughout. We advocate that it's an intersectional area and platform of support. It's not just for the family, not just for the individual, you know, and it's for community as a whole, because it's a very individual experience, because that is the story of neurodivergence. So, yeah.
We've touched upon inclusion. You touched upon inclusion earlier, and I just wanted to ask you, what does inclusion mean to each one of you? What is your personal experience of it, and how do you work towards it in your professional lives as well?
So inclusion, I think it's a word that we hear a lot about. We hear inclusion, equity, equality. And there's a lot of weight in that, in those three words. I've always challenged employers, because in my training that I provide, I challenge workplaces. Is your workplace inclusive, equal? But a lot of practices come into place once a person is working and they become unwell, and then, you know, you have to legally support that person. But then I challenge them, are you doing the same things in your recruitment processes? Are you opening the doors to more people, to everybody? Are you just closing? Are you just looking at the best of the best of the best of the best? And what does the best look like to you? Okay? I mean, in Clubhouse, we have people with wonderful minds and intelligence beyond, you know, lots beyond the horizon. And yet, they feel that they are unemployable because of a label. So that's one thing that I think is key, is yes, work towards inclusion, equity and equality in the workplace, but from the start, not just when it's in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be quite a controversial point when I speak about inclusion, because I would be the first person to say that oftentimes what we see, and this is in general, is that sometimes the word inclusion and equality can be actually used as buzzwords. And they are words that look good on the front of a policy. They are words that look good on, you know, on some post to gain that attention, you know. And inclusion and equality are far, far more than just a marketing tool, you know. They're more than just a tick box. To actually include and advocate for inclusion, you need to take effective steps of integration. You need to be you need to be listening to the voices of those with lived experience. You need to be taking on the advice of the professionals firsthand. Yes, you may have a lot of gesture of goodwill, and you might think you know what is best in your opinion, you know, but if you don't have the lived experience and you're not working with that background, then how can you effectively include people? You know, the same goes with equality. Yes, because we provide equal opportunities. Yes, absolutely. All of the group, the collective of the room, might have the same opportunity. But do they each have the individual requirements to access that individual opportunity? So I think that's quite important as well. So, yeah.
We were talking the other day about inclusion and belonging, and somebody made the point that belonging is something that you have to, it's a feeling, and inclusion is something that you have to do repeatedly. It's an action. It's not done once. but it's something that has to be continued. No? So, and how important that is in ensuring that people belong to a community, perhaps to a community within a wider community as well. I just wanted to touch upon different areas, and I just wanted to ask you, like, what misconceptions would you like to challenge or debunk today? Because perhaps some people aren't very familiar with Clubhouse and its works or possibilities. So is there anything in particular that you would like to challenge today?
So one sort of myth, and looking at or listening before to the disability language panel and the language on disability, everyone has abilities. Everyone has abilities to work. A label doesn't stop you from employment, to contributing, and that is the definition, in the definition of mental health by the WHO organization. One of the aspects is being able to, when you feel well, being able to work or contribute to a community. And it's in all the entire sort of, not just in neurodiversity, but in sort of severe mental illnesses as well. When people realize, you know, when you feel well, when you feel supported, when you are in an organization with policies and procedures in place that will allow you to thrive, that will have accessibility, you will thrive. And I just want to keep that message on, that people are able, people can, but we need to keep those opportunities available to them.
Yeah. And work is very important, isn't
Absolutely.
it, in giving people a sense of purpose, a sense of identity,
Yeah.
giving them a daily routine, making them feel productive.
Yeah, I mean, in Clubhouse, we do exactly that. We have over 300 members, and in active members, we have about 90. So in the 12 years we've been running, we've had up to 300 people, and people volunteer and they come to work. So they have their routine, they are doing their accounts, they're doing social media, they're cooking, they're selling stuff in the shop, they're doing database, anything and everything that's required to run the Clubhouse. We are only 7 members of staff. Believe you me, we cannot do it all. But the members, they run the Clubhouse. Yeah, and you know, and it's, when we are short of staff, things still get done, you know.
Yeah, Nicole, do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, so I mean, there's more like smaller snippets, I suppose, but a couple of closer to home things to debunk would be that obviously Possibilities is not just for children, it's for persons of all ages, because we often find that disability charities can often be quite closely recognised and actually quite infantilised to just children. But people, humans, are longer in their lives an adult than they are a child, so that's one thing I wanted to mention. And the second thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people will say, oh, but do you need a diagnosis to access your services? Because my child, my loved one, doesn't have a diagnosis. And we do not require a diagnosis. Okay? We require, obviously, that you are being seen by local professionals, that you are having the support that you require to then perhaps get referred or to get like signposted to us. But by and large, we won't have people come and use our services that won't or don't feel they typically need it. On that note, one, we break down the barrier of perhaps access to particular areas of support requiring a diagnosis or requiring particular areas of paperwork, a tick box. Support should be there from the beginning. Support should be accessible from the moment the person feels it is needed, not to the time when it's put on a bit of paper. Then we also want to mention the fact that, remember, a diagnosis and a label are 2 different things. Okay? A diagnosis is something that a doctor gives you, a medical professional gives you, and it's on their paper. A label is how a person identifies and how a person resonates and wants to be seen, and the autonomy of the individual to be seen. And it's one thing I can say now, because I myself am neurodivergent, I have ADHD, and my son is neurodivergent, he's autistic. And a lot of people will say, yes, but I don't want to be labelled. I don't want to be labelled. And that's absolutely personal opinion. And I'm here, I will give you my opinion on that, is the fact that labels can actually be quite important as long as they're used respectfully. Why? Because if I do not advocate for how I am seen, which may be interpreted as how I am labelled, if I don't advocate correctly, others in the community will do that incorrectly. And my son will be seen to be the oddball in the group. My son will be seen to be, and it's not language I like to use, the different kid, and you can all in the room perceive other language that can be used. And instead of being the naughty child, by having that identification with his diagnosis, with his self-identification as autistic, then he's correctly labeled, so.
Yeah, and I was wanting to say a lot of attention has already been given this morning to language, the importance of language, and I wondered if there was anything that you would like to add to that conversation, like how important is language in fostering inclusive communities?
Well, language is key. Negative language has a massive impact in a very negative way. One thing that I want to sort of agree with the panel earlier this morning is that the intention for me is key. I mean, language is always evolving. We talked about this last week. We speak the English language, which is one of the most evolved languages there are. And it's always evolving, it's always changing. We're always trying to sort of say the right thing. But if you sort of have the hat on of going with a right intention from a place of no judgment, people will remember how you made them feel. People will remember if you made them feel judged or not. The exact words can be very important, but your intention has to come through.
Yeah, we are close to wrapping up, but I did want to ask you a final question. How can Gibraltar as a community become more inclusive, do you think, Nicole?
So I think it's multifaceted, so I think Gibraltar could become more inclusive. I think it has to be said that we've come a long way. I think we just need to continue listening to the communication of those with lived experience, speaking to the community, and we need to, again, try and see things for how they are communicated to you that they are, if that makes any sense, rather than what you believe them to be. More so with neurodivergence, because obviously I advocate for all disabilities, absolutely. However, with lived experience of neurodivergence, again, we go back to the fact is, if it's not seen, you might be quick to think that it's not there. So I think we just need to be more open-minded in some areas.
Yeah, before we close, we also have a statement from a service user at Clubhouse, Joseph, and he said, he wanted me to read this out. He said, Clubhouse has become a truly safe and comforting space for me, a place where I can share anything on my mind and feel completely supported without fear of judgment. Being part of Clubhouse has allowed me to form meaningful, genuine friendships that have brought so much warmth into my life. It has also given me the confidence and encouragement I needed to return to work. I'm deeply grateful for everything Clubhouse has helped me rediscover in myself. Joseph is here today, and I'm not sure if he wanted to add anything to that. If you do want to, just raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you. But otherwise, we'll leave it there. Nicole and Marianne, thank you so very much for your insights today, but more importantly, thank you for the work that you carry out throughout the course of the year and for creating healthy communities for the individuals that you support.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.